He shrank to the point where he almost couldn't see over the table any longer. The relic fell from his hands too small to hold the weight of the piece any longer. Goyle reached forward and snatched the small Draco away from the statue, pulling him up against his waist and half turning him to shield him from the room. The head table erupted in movement as the teachers raced to regain control. Dumbledore and Snape headed over to the Slytherin table while other teachers waved students back to the seat. The headmaster knelt next to the statue and examined it cautiously, without touching it for long moments before giving a slight and producing a swatch of cloth from his robes. He tossed the cloth over the relic and gingerly picked it up, holding it closely against his robes. He turned to take Draco. The small boy was cowering against Goyle's legs, eyes unbelievably wide and frightened. Snape was at the front of the Slytherin table trying to calm down a horde of shrieking first-years. Dumbledore took a step towards Draco, and he realized that Draco wasn't looking at him at all. He was staring at the sea of inquisitive faces behind him. Before the headmaster could shield him or even offer him a word of comfort, Draco bolted. He picked up the excess material of his robe and raced out of the room. Sadly, Dumbledore watched him go, knowing there would be no way his old legs could catch him. He looked to the Slytherins, wondering who would take up this task. Not surprisingly, Crabbe and Goyle exchanged glances and began lumbering out of the room, though at a much slower pace. Dumbledore turned a disapproving look on the rest of the motionless Slytherins, and then their eyes moved to the rest of the room. He watched with a glimmer of amusement as Harry Potter began fidgeting. Fidgeting grew to squirming. Squirming turned to the boy, pushing his seat back and taking off nearly as fast a run as the young Mr. Malfoy. Harry ignored the cries sent by his friends and McGonagall and slammed through the doors that Draco had exited a moment earlier. McGonagall turned frustrated, her eyes on the headmaster, who simply gave a tiny shake of his head. She quirked an eyebrow, but returned to calming the Gryffindors, who were less than happy that their golden boy had just run off after the Slytherin prince. Harry searched for nearly 5 minutes before spotting Goyle and Crabbe in the Charms corridor. They were crouched in front of a large statue, entering what Harry thought might be Draco to come out. Harry approached cautiously. One did not interfere with the hulking goons, charged without permission. They were like rapid wolverines when it came to protecting Draco. Surprisingly enough, they flashed him a look of relief as he came in sight. "Did you find him?" Harry asked carefully. "Yeah," Goyle nodded. There was a small hole behind there. He shoved himself up into the corner there. We can't reach him. Harry knelt and followed Goyle's finger to see a small figure curled into a ball. "Pretty sure he's as old as he looks, too," Crabbe added. "He doesn't seem to remember who we are. He won't believe us that we're the Crabbe and Goyle he knows." Can you get to him?" Goyle asked. Stiltedly, Harry shrugged him again, unbuckling his cloak. "Don't know, but I sure am going to try." He dropped his school robes in a heap next to the statue and belly crawled behind it until he was blocking the hole with his body. Draco looked up as Harry's shadow fell across the opening. Sorry. Draco looked up as Harry's shadow fell across the opening, and Harry felt his gut ache as he took in tears on the little boy's face. Draco looked so tiny huddled in that hole. "Hi," Harry whispered. Draco didn't reply, just stared suspiciously at him. "I'm Harry. Do you remember me?" Draco shook his head. "I don't know anyone named Harry." "Well, you do now," the Gryffindor smiled widely. "Don't care." Draco returned Drarry, small chin coming up. Harry shrugged, pleased to see some life returning to those scared eyes. "It's fine, you don't have to." "Draco, why'd you run away?" Draco moved back to his huddle. "Too many people," he whispered. Didn't think that there was that many people anywhere." Harry nodded. "I understand. I wasn't raised with that many people either. Just my aunt, uncle, and cousin. I was a bit frightened myself when I saw how many people were here." "Really?" Draco asked skeptically. "Really?" Harry smiled. "Draco, when you were holding that statue," he continued in a more serious tone, "did it hurt you at all?" "It pulled me out of my room," Draco accused. "Your room? At the manor? Were you at your home?" Draco nodded. "What were you doing?" Did it hurt when you were pulled out of your room?" "Did it hurt when you were pulled out of your room?" Harry asked again. "Or were you hurt by anything here? Or are you injured, or just scared?" There was a brief moment of silence in which Harry tried to peer further back into the darkness of the hole, and Draco stared destructively fall out at him, finally. "No, the statue didn't hurt me, but when I was running away, I tripped on my robes and hurt my hand." His small face screwed up again, holding back tears, and Harry was struck by how devastated the boy sounded. He looked curiously over at Goyle and Crabbe. Crabbe shuffled a bit, not meeting Harry's eyes. Goyle sighed, then whispered, He was always falling over himself when he was little, always hurting himself. His mum and dad get really angry at him." "We always thought he might be getting punished whenever he hurt himself," Vince added, not seeming to notice Goyle's resulting glare. "Just from the way he acted, he grew out of it around 7 or 8. The look of fury on Harry's face was enough that the boys took a step back. Harry composed his expression and looked back Draco in the eye. "Draco, are you in trouble?" he said smoothly. "I hurt myself all the time. I'm terribly accident prone. And oh, shoot. Oh, crap, that was the wrong person. Sorry, Oh, I'm terribly sorry." "Draco, you aren't in any trouble," he said smoothly. "I hurt myself all the time. I'm terribly accident prone, and I'm years older than you. It isn't your fault. You have huge robes on. You're bound to trip over them. Sometimes. But I'm worried about your hand. Can you come out? Where I can see if you need some healing?" Harry tried to put a note of coax into his voice. Draco hesitated. "Please?" There were sounds of shuffling, and Draco's tiny golden head poked out of the hole behind the statue. Harry smiled and scooted back to make more room for Draco to come out. Harry sat against the wall and waited for Draco to come to him. Slowly, the boy did just that. Harry patiently waited for Draco to hold out his hand for an inspection. It wasn't terrible. The palms of the little boy's hands were skinned. Bits of dirt clung to the sweaty little appendages. The worst of it was a badly broken fingernail. Harry clucked it over. "That looks like it hurts," he said, turning it this way and that to inspect it. "Would you mind if I healed you?" Draco hesitated. Harry looked back up at the two Slytherins, watching summersly. "They never healed anything that wasn't killing him," Greg grudgingly answered Harry's look. Draco looked in fear as he knew precisely whom they were, and Greg tried to smile at him. Draco inched away from Greg, putting him closer to Harry's lap. "Would you like to sit here with me? Maybe in my lap, so I can see those hands better?" Draco's eyes grew wide. "You want me to sit on your lap?" he whispered. Harry nodded and settled down to make his legs a comfy spot. His hands held out, and Draco watched for a long time before inching closer and finally carefully placing himself in Harry's lap. Harry gently placed an arm around the little boy, feeling tense, and took a hold of Draco's left hand. Harry whispered a mild cleansing spell and then a basic healing one. Draco stared in amusement as his hurt went away. He investigated the healed hand and as soon as Harry turned it loose. "Feel better?" Harry asked. Draco nodded and returned to staring at Harry. "Want me to do the other now?" Draco nodded and presented his right hand. Harry repeated the procedure. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" Draco shook his head, hesitant, and then nodded instead. "Where?" Harry asked, concern coloring his voice. "Tell me and I'll fix you." Tears welled up in Draco's eyes, and he shook his head. Harry frowned. "Why not?" "They said it's supposed to teach me a lesson," Draco whispered. Harry suppressed a growl. Lest he run his hard-earned trust. "Draco, you're a little boy," he explained. "Leaving you here doesn't teach you a lesson. It just teaches you not to trust others who want to help you. And I do want to help," he added earnestly. "Please show me where you hurt. Slowly, Draco lifted up his robes and pulled up one of the legs of his two large pants. Greg gasped. "Holy crap, that's when he got it," he whispers. Harry glances up, more to stop looking at the weeping burn, striping nearly the whole of Draco's lower right leg, then to acknowledge Greg. "He has a scar on his leg still," Greg continued. "He never tell us where he got it." Harry steeled himself and turned back to the burn. "How'd this happen, Draco?" he asked gently. Draco's eyes filled up again. "I was running through Father's study. I tripped and fell into the fireplace." His head dropped. "I'm not supposed to run in Father's study." Harry fought back tears of his own. "Draco, pet, I can't heal this. It's too big." Draco seemed to deflate and nodded acceptantly. He shifted to climb off of Draco's lap. "Wait, no!" Harry nearly panicked. He clutched Draco close to him. "It's not that I don't want to," he explained hastily. "I hate seeing you hurt like this. I honestly don't know how to fix it. I don't know the spell. Let me take you to the infirmary. Madame Pomfrey can help you. She's really nice and she's brilliant at healing, he added encouragingly. Draco nodded and climbed off with Harry, allowing the older boy to stand. Harry smiled down at him. Let me fix your robes, though. He murmured a spell he learned from Mrs. Weasley, and Draco's robes shrank to child size. Draco just stared in quiet amusement. Ready? Harry asked cheerfully. Draco nodded. Harry held out a hand for him, and Draco eyed it cautiously. You don't have to go if you don't want to, Harry pointed out. After eyeing Goyle and Crabbe, Draco cautiously slipped a tiny hand into Harry's larger one. They headed off down the hall. Harry noticed right away Draco was limping. He stopped, then knelt down beside the boy. It looks like your leg hurts to walk, he pointed out. Draco nodded, fear on his face again. Would you mind if I carried you? It would make your leg hurt less. Draco looked over at the two Slytherins as trying to find the hidden agenda of all this niceness. The other boys tried to smile supportively. Eventually, Draco nodded and took a deep breath, holding it as though he didn't know what to expect. Harry gently picked him up and set him on his hip, making sure Draco's leg wasn't about to bump into anything. That better? He asked once again. Draco just nodded, wide eyes in wonder. We need to stop back in the Great Hall and tell Headmaster Dumbledore where we're going, Harry warned. Draco seemed to draw in on himself again. But we won't be staying, and I'll be right there with you, as well as Crabbe and Goyle. Crabbe and Goyle? Are they here? Harry frowned and glanced up at the other two. Greg shrugged. I told you he didn't believe it was us when he said who we were. Harry just nodded and continued to the Great Hall. As the small group entered, all eyes trained on the small bundle in Harry's arms. Draco buried his face in Harry's neck. The barrage of questions and comment began. He really got him. Look how small he is. He's adorable. Why is Harry holding him? What do you think happened? Harry walked straight to the table, where Dumbledore had retaken his seat. Hello, sir. We found him, he said loudly enough for the whole hall, so that the whole hall couldn't miss it. He got a bit of scruff, though. We were taking him to the infirmary. Good, very good, Harry. Dumbledore beamed. Perhaps Professor Snape can accompany you. Draco's head shot up at that. He searched the table when he saw Snape's face. His own broke into a huge smile. Uncle Severus? He whispered. Snape stood up, walked forward, ignoring Harry's astonished gaping. Draco! How do you do today? He asked, shooting an unreadable glance at Harry. I'm well, Uncle Severus, he said politely. What's this needing to go to the infirmary? Draco paled instantly. Harry clutched him closer and spoke up. We'll just be going now, Professor, if you'd come with us. On that note, Harry turned and moved back down the aisle, smiling briefly at his astonished friends. Crabbe and Goyle followed along, glaring at all and sundry, and Snape brought up the tail end of the group, frowning thoughtfully.